Bene, riprendiamo i nostri lavori mentre gli ultimi dopo il caffè si riavvicinano. La giornata è intensa, quindi dobbiamo cercare di tenere il ritmo. Come ho, ci siamo tutti, sì. Ecco, come ho presentato questa mattina, ora abbiamo una serie di ospiti che ci aiuteranno in questa riflessione sulle diverse modalità di crescita. I primi due ospiti ci parleranno di Growth Strategies. Abbiamo due prospettive diverse, una prospettiva più legata al mondo industriale, legato al tema dell'innovazione, della capacità di crescere estendendo anche geograficamente le proprie attività, la seconda che nasce invece dalla crescita per vie esterne, per acquisizioni. I due ospiti sono, e mi scuso perché prima ho detto Michael, ma è André-Michel Ballester e il secondo, che peraltro noi conosciamo bene e tra l'altro stracitato oggi, è Claudio Costamagna. Io inviterei André-Michel Ballester sul palco, ringraziandolo ovviamente per la disponibilità e lo lascio ai suoi lavori. Credo che lei abbia...
Ciao a tutti.
Ok,
Grazie.
perfetto.
Grazie, Professor Grando. Good afternoon to you all. I have the tough task to be the first after lunch, so I'll try to make this as educational and enjoyable as possible. First of all, I would like to thank very much Bocconi and the Alumni Association for inviting me to this great event. As I look for the first slide, I'd like to make 3 disclaimers before I start. Well, the first disclaimer is that, as you can hear already, I will speak to you in English. I love Italian too much to speak in Italian to you, so I hope you'll be patient with me. Second disclaimer is actually quite a regulatory disclaimer. I don't know if you're aware of the fact that the president of the Alumni Association of Bocconi, Pietro Guindani, is also a distinguished board member of Soaring Group. And the fact that Pietro is a member of the compensation committee that, amongst other things, decides on my variable salary has nothing to do with me accepting this invitation, obviously. Thanks anyhow, Pietro, in advance. I appreciate it. Third disclaimer is I'm going to use slides today that I actually use in my day-to-day life in the company. So these are not slides that were made up for you. They were really nicely arranged by the company that does the audiovisual here. But the content of the slides is basically the content that my colleagues at Soaring have seen or will see in the next few weeks as part of the program I will introduce to you in a moment. So there will be some acronyms in there. There will be some details that you really don't have to worry about. And if after the presentation you're interested in more, I'll be happy to take questions outside the meeting. But don't worry too much about some of the acronyms in the presentation. Lastly, I'd like to introduce briefly Soaring Group. As a company, we do about 750 million euros in sales. In dollars, it's even more impressive because we're a billion-dollar company. Why do I say that? Is because, although half of our employees are actually in Italy, we have about 4,000 employees in the company, only 10% of our business is in Italy, which means that 90% of our business is actually made outside Italy. And we specialize in medical technology. More particularly, we specialize in cardiovascular technology. You'll be proud to know, hopefully, that an Italian company, Soaring Group, is the world leader in cardiac surgery. In the world today, there are about 1.5 million operations of cardiac surgery that are made every year. 50% of these procedures are made with equipment or disposable that are made in Italy. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to a slide that I've used quite a lot in the last, I would say, years. This is a strategic plan slide, but I want to tell you that I became CEO in 2007. So at that time, the slide only had 3 columns or 4 columns until 2010. And the strategy for the company was very, very basic and simple. It was survival. So we had to move from a state we called at that time unacceptable to a state that we now call good through a turnaround. So you can see some of the numbers at the bottom, which is the EBITDA margin that we use as a way for us to set stretch goals. And we've done pretty well. I mean, the company was losing 83 million euros in 2007. We reported 58 million net earnings, positive net earnings in 2011. So, you know, we can say that this phase one has been pretty successful for us, and I'll show you in a minute what we've done more specifically. But I'll spend more time talking about where we are today, 2011, 2012, which is the beginning of a new phase, phase two, where we want to accelerate growth. Well, you look at how we're going to do that. I'm not going to spend much time on telling you what kind of innovation we're going to do as a company, because probably it won't be much of very useful for you, but we are spending 10% of our sales in research and development. We are an innovation-driven company, so obviously growth and acceleration of growth is going to come from our ability to develop and commercialize technology that are designed to meet unmet clinical needs, new markets, if you wish. Also, the other area of growth for us is the area of geographic expansion. Just like most industries, the emerging markets are also emerging for us. They are truly emerging for our business. China today is only 2 to 3% of the market, but it will become obviously 20 to 25% of the market in the next 10 years. So we have nice growth opportunities there. Last on this list, acquisitions. It's part of the armamentarium that we have chosen to grow the company, but we probably won't count too much on acquisitions. As you know, acquisitions are great. Instant gratification for the management. Yeah, you've achieved something, but then the tough part is integration. And as you probably know, because all of you have studied here, there are more failures than successes in acquisitions. So what I wanted to do with you is really spend more time on this kind of phase in the middle. And before that, just introduce briefly some of the imperatives that we had for the phase one, which was the unacceptable to good phase. Don't spend any time on the right side. I'll just mention some of this briefly, but really what's important in this slide is to see what were the key value drivers of our company in 2007. I heard this morning Mr. Marchione saying that he had changed the whole team in Fiat. Well, I mean, obviously I'm going to be a lot more modest because it's a much smaller company, but we actually changed the whole leadership team as well when I became CEO of the company. So we created key value drivers, and they, as you can see, they're pretty boring. They are pretty dull, right? They are kind of cost-cutting, financial discipline, account receivables and inventories. Nobody wants to work on this, but they do create cash. And our company at that time was leaking cash, and we had 330 million of debt, which is too high for a company of our size. So we worked on all these things, a very exciting legal and tax structure to simplify, making sure our quality assurance processes were okay and so forth. And you can see that we also did a lot of work on the organizational development, moving to a simplified organization with business units and so forth. We also did some stuff that, for instance, CRIP. Well, CRIP is an acronym that is pretty, doesn't sound very good, but it means Cost Reduction Initiative Programs. So just to illustrate that we were really focused on restoring profitability for the company, and we did. One of the things that we're the most proud of is actually our ability to improve gross margin. And this slide tells you two things. The first thing it tells you is that we've made great progress in improving our gross margins. And this is the main reason why we've been able to improve our EBITDA margin from 10% to almost 18% today, that we've been able to move from losing 83 million in 2007 to making 58 million of net earnings in 2011. So this slide tells you this. Actually, I was expecting a standing ovation, but, but the other thing this slide tells you is that's probably why you're not giving me a standing ovation, is you can see compared to our competitors, all of these guys are American, we still have long ways to go. Well, there is a glass ceiling, however, because of who we are as a company, the portfolio of products we have, the fact that we manufacture mostly in the Eurozone and our competitors are manufacturing in the dollar zone. Today is a competitive disadvantage for us. I won't go into the manufacturing in Italy piece. You've heard enough this morning. We actually manufacture a lot in Italy, and we're not that bad, I believe. So we have a glass ceiling here that is probably 3 or 4 percentage points higher than where we're today, around 63, 65%. So these slides tell you 2 things. We've made great progress, but we're still far behind our peer group. So in 2009, 2010, we realized that we were going to be successful with the turnaround phase and that we needed to prepare the next phase for the company. And the next phase for us was we believe we're a good company. Some people would say we're better in some areas than some others. But overall, we're a pretty good company. We have good financials now. We have almost no debt left. But if we want to be a great company, there are things we need to do differently. And the main message, as you've seen in my first slide with the strategic plan, is for us in our industry, in an innovation, technology-driven industry, the difference between a good company and a great company is the ability to grow. It is not unlikely to see companies in our industry growing at 10, 15, 20%, even companies of our size. So we believe it can be done. Now, I'm not going to go into the things that we need to do in terms of innovation, spending R&D, acquiring technologies, or expanding in China. Lots of opportunities there. I'm going to spend more time talking to you about some of the changes that we need to manage inside the company today. So we really made a turnaround. So we had to change first in 2007 from unacceptable to good. And that was very painful. Lots of people left the company. Lots of people weren't happy. Lots of people thought we were crazy. We're never going to make it. Well, now we have an even more challenging change to make. And the way for us to simplify this was to align this change process within 5 steps. And today with you, I'm just going to talk about the first 2 because that's where we are. The first step is about creating what is called a burning platform. I'm sure you understand the concept of burning platform. It means a platform that is not sustainable because it's burning. So you better jump out or find a solution for the platform. And I'll talk to you in a moment about that. Then the second phase is about creating and communicating the vision and the values. And you heard this morning Mr. Marchione talk about the values, and you'll see that the values that we're communicating to the team, a lot of them were there even way before I joined the company, and they've been there for a long time. But we need to create new values so that we become a different company. Now, let me spend some time on the burning platform because that's a concept that everybody understands. But it's hard to convince people that they're on a burning platform, particularly because in our company, people feel pretty good about where they are today. They feel that they've done a pretty darn good job. They have turned around this company. They are heroes. Well, now I need to tell them, I need to convince them that this is not a sustainable situation anymore. I had to convince them. I have to convince the board. There are a lot of people I need to convince that this is not a sustainable situation, however good we feel about it. So we've developed a few models and a few slides, and I just wanted to share with you one that I think is pretty telling. When I talk about the burning platform and the need for us to change as a company, I'm trying to convince people that staying where we are today from a financial standpoint is not sustainable. And if we do nothing in terms of moving the top line, and you see it stays at 100, with the kind of money we need to spend in R&D, which is about 10% of our sales, the amount of money we need to spend to support our structure, because we have a global structure, we're present in 80 countries in the world, unless we have top-line growth, we're going to go back to where we were in 2007. And I tell you, in our company, nobody wants to see that. So this is just part of the message we have on Burning Platform. We have other messages that are more positive. Obviously, we're trying to show the team how great the company will be once we get double-digit growth and once we achieve some of the objectives that we have. So in doing that, and in creating this vision and starting to communicate the vision, we realized very quickly that the key value drivers that we had to focus on moving forward were going to be very different from the key value drivers you've seen in the first slide. Remember the first slide? It was all about exciting stuff like inventories and account receivables and cost cutting and so forth. I still remember them now, and they were really designed for the situation we had. Well, now we're in a different situation, and although financial discipline is still critical for us to achieve our objectives, we need to focus on other value drivers for the company. And these are growth. I talked about emerging countries. I talked about innovation. We need to focus still on execution, financial discipline. I mean, these are obviously given. And there is a new notion that I won't kind of develop today for your benefits, but our industry is changing. A few years ago, 10 years ago, say, it was enough to have an innovative product, and the customers, physicians, will come and buy it. Today, not enough. You need to have a device or a technology that saves lives or improves lives, but also reduces cost of the healthcare system. Because as you've seen in the presentation this morning, healthcare cost in the US is kind of already 20% of the GDP, and it's unsustainable. Now, we also have to change the organization, and we have to work on maybe a different type of organization with maybe boundaries that are less rigid around the business units. And again, a lot of work around that. And there are new things that we need to do. For instance, we don't have the CRIP programs anymore. We have what we call the SAPS program. But their focus is not to reduce costs for the sake of reducing costs for the bottom line. It's also for the sake of reinvesting the money we save or the efficiency we gain in other initiatives to accelerate growth. We also are very keen in exploring new business models. I mean, we are typically a brick-and-mortar company. We're a B2B company. We make products. We sell them to customers. There are many ways today that are emerging, new ways of doing business using iPhones or smartphones, rather, or using telemetry or remote monitoring. So we're reinventing our business a little bit. Now, this was basically the what, okay, we were going to do. One thing I'd like to leave you today with is a few concepts of the how. And we realized that probably a little later than we understood the what. So in other words, what it takes to be, let's say, great when you're good, in our words, it means accelerate growth. It's something we can figure out pretty easily, right? It's in our case, innovation, geographic expansion, a few things on the priorities, a few things on the organization. The how has been more difficult for us to figure out because it doesn't take the same company to do a restructuring, a turnaround, than to do to accelerate growth. So we worked on the how, and we are actually in the process of communicating this how to the company in an organized fashion. And the how is about the way we do things. On this pyramid, and this you call it the culture of the company. On this pyramid, you can see the values that are at the bottom. They are non-negotiable. I mean, they are there. They've been there. And we want to build our future on these notions that are very solid core values for our company. The two in the middle, excellence in quality and ethics, and organizational boundaries, or organizational development. These are things that evolve all the time, so you never get there. Okay, you try to get better all the time, but you actually never get there. The ones in red on top are the things that we need to add to our culture so that we become a successful growing company. There are some that are pretty obvious. Time to market. It takes 5 to 7 years for us to develop a new product. If we can reduce that, if we can also be more precise or more accurate in the launch dates, if we are also a company that has a very strong engineering background. So engineers are great at many things. They're not necessarily great at marketing and sales. So we need to learn some of the skills that our US competitors have in terms of launching new products and targeting accounts. Employer of choice, as you know, you don't do a great company without great people, so that goes without saying. The last two on the top are really new news for us as a company. Speed and agility, you've heard that again this morning. Speed and agility, if you want to grow, we are in the sweet spot. We're a medium-sized company. We have much smaller competitors, but we have also much larger competitors than ours. We're just big enough to be able to invest. We should be small enough to be agile. We're not today. We need to learn that. The one on the top is probably the toughest from a cultural standpoint to explain people. And people say, well, are you going to reward failure? Is that what you're saying? You know, people are going to try stuff. They're going to not be successful. And you're going to tell them, great job, you tried. Well, that's true. If you want to be a growing company, if you want to be a company that changes, if you want a company that explores new markets, new business models, you have to accept failure as part of the process. You have to accept failure as a way to learn for the organization. And I think that's what we, as an organization at Soin, have to learn. And I tell you, this is very painful and very difficult. But we'll get there. So, last slide is about, you know, what we do typically, you know, with this new culture, with these new values that we have developed. On the left side, you see the cultural traits that we've put here. Some of the stuff we do. I won't insist too much on Blue Ocean because it's a trademark from another business school that you might know. But it's a great process to look outside the box and find new ideas. We just completed one of these Blue Ocean program recently, and we went through all the ideas that had been generated by the team. It's a great process, very complex, gives you great new ideas that nobody has thought about. And we had 7 ideas at the end. And so my executive leadership team, so the team that around me manages the company, we sat down and tried to think about which ones we were going to try, okay, in the test and learn kind of environment. And one of the guys who had been very involved in my team in the Blue Ocean thing said, you know what, the team is watching you guys because they think you are so conservative that you're not going to take any of these projects. You're not going to dare to make changes in the company. There will be Blue Ocean changes, so exploring new ways. Well, that's the challenge we're facing today. So I'll leave you with these thoughts. We believe that Soin is known today as a good company, a company that has been able to do a pretty spectacular turnaround. Actually, we want to be known in the future as a great company. And for us, a great company is a company that delivers long-term sustainable growth. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I can just keep it for... Grazie mille. Io provo solo a raccogliere 2 riflessioni che mi hanno particolarmente colpito e su cui poi lavoreremo. Poi vi spiegherò come verrete ingaggiati di nuovo. I nostri ospiti rimarranno per una diversa modalità di Q&A, ma questo lo illustro dopo il secondo speech. Mi sembra di poter dire che ci sono 3 messaggi forti di cui sono pienamente convinto. 1, il tema del right timing, del tempo. Oggi è necessario cogliere le finestre strategiche che si aprono in maniera appropriata e da questo punto di vista, soprattutto in un momento quale quello attuale, è essenziale instillare il senso di urgenza del cambiamento. Non si può aspettare troppo. Il tema citato infine del test and learn, quindi anche di sbagliare, è chiaro che ci vuole coraggio, è chiaro quello che ci dice anche stamattina Marchione, alla fine qualcuno deve prendere le decisioni, però per certi versi c'è un pericolo peggiore che è quello del continuare ad analizzare, analysis paralysis, non si fa che analizzare. Quando si pensa di aver raggiunto un buon livello di conoscenza del problema, ormai il tempo è passato, si è in ritardo e quindi le cose vanno fatte assumendosi il rischio anche di sbagliare. Indubbiamente alcuni settori se lo possono permettere di più, altri di meno, vedendo la redditività di questo settore e chiaramente mi congratulo. Il secondo tema è quello di creare e comunicare una visione del cambiamento e questo lo estendo un po' al nostro lavoro, per certi versi anche il lavoro che faccio io, quello del docente, e che è quello di dare il senso, spiegare, illustrare, trasferire il senso delle cose che facciamo, perché si va in quella direzione. Bisogna dare il senso e per fare questo si torna alle cose che poi muovono le persone sono mosse anche dall'idea di fare le cose le giuste e quindi bisogna avere una visione alta dei valori ed è pienamente condividibile. E infine un tema sicuramente che sta venendo fuori con grande direi enfasi è quello del leading by examples, ovvero poi a un certo punto bisogna buttarsi nell'arena, bisogna dimostrare che questo rischio che va giocato lo si assume in prima persona, che tutte le cose che si dicono vanno poi praticate, questo è l'unico modo secondo me per cambiare. Abbiamo visto come uno dei temi di crescita che sono nel piano strategico di Soaring è legato al tema delle acquisizioni, è legato al tema della crescita anche diciamo per vie esterne con tutte le problematiche di integrazione che ci sono.